Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the December Bricktown Urban Design Committee meeting to order. Paula, would you please start us?
Omar Curry.
Present.
Jonathan Dotson. Ava Scaramucci.
Present.
Sandino Thompson.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the November 9th minutes. Do we have any comments or corrections?
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
I was not at that meeting.
Thank you.
Since theoretically you've had the opportunity to review the video, if you feel comfortable, you can make the second, but if it's not something you want to do, then we could also just continue it to the next meeting.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3, there are no cases. Item number 4, continuance requests. There are none. Item number 5A on the consent docket is case number BCA-16-00022. Are there any comments from committee members?
I would like to move, at least for the item on the consent docket, at least for the presentation, if it's possible.
Michael, is the presentation on the slides today?
You need to make a motion in a second to move it to items for individual consideration.
But is there slides?
Yes.
Okay.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. So we'll move item 5A down to 8B. No?
Yes, this item.
6A, sorry.
This item's been reviewed by staff, and the reason we place it on the consent docket is that we've determined that it complies with all the applicable rules and regulations such as they are for installation like this. The proposal is to mount an art piece that is illuminated from internally underneath the Oklahoma Avenue Bridge at the Bricktown Canal. And the location here is shown on the graphic on the south wall of the canal that would be facing the water taxis and so on and so forth to the north. This is a picture that kind of gives you a graphic of with that blue rectangle in there that kind of shows where the art piece would be located beneath the bridge. And then we've shown you some photographs here of the surrounding businesses and buildings that are located around the site. There's a more detailed graphic showing the location. This is submittal from the applicant, giving you a better sense of the scale and proportion of the artwork underneath the bridge. And this is a picture of the actual work itself.
I have a couple of questions. What is the time frame for the installation?
Have the applicant.
Or duration? I guess the time frame for the duration of the installation.
As we understand it, it's permanent.
My name is Amanda Bradway, and I'm the artist on the project. The time frame, everything's ready to go as soon as we have approval from this committee.
Okay. And so it's meant to be permanent?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would just like to comment that I think always like to see some artwork in places that are typically a little bit unnoticed and dark, because just like on the bridges, I think it has made a tremendous difference in just the feel of the area. So I would say the same of your piece. It's nice.
Thank you very much.
I think, and I would probably echo Avis's comments. I think it's a very nice piece of artwork, and it's a nice idea. I think my comments are probably maybe more so for staff or potentially for DOKC, because I'm not sure I'm not sure what the precedent is for installations like this, and I think about the upkeep. So I think the art piece and the concept is great. I just want to make sure that like 10 or 15 years from now, it's still great, right? So and I think some things, especially along the canal, we've had maybe maintenance or things like that over a period of time. Things that were great when they first were established, maybe aren't great 15 years later, and that's why I was asking about the duration of the time period.
And I can answer that to a certain extent. As I understand it, the pieces that are coming to us for approval have already gone through the process and approval of the Arts Council. And a couple of points that they're really careful to consider is that there is a maintenance plan in place for the life of the artwork, and certainly that it meets all of their guidelines, and that it's sustainable. And there's one other thing that we learned in class that just this past week, other than the maintenance of that, and maybe you can help me on that piece.
My name is Stacy Singer. I'm with Downtown OKC. So what we have been asking for from the artists and through Arts Commission is that it stays up at least 10 years, but not that it's necessarily permanent. So we already have people on the canal who maintain the canal and also the district all over, and so we have eyes on it every single day. And so our intention is that after 10 years, we'll really start paying closer attention. Is it still sturdy? If we need to bring an engineer out again, we will certainly do that. And so we've already set aside funds to be able to maintain that.
What is the other point that, Lisa, help me out.
I'm trying to remember, it's maintenance, it's artistic merit.
Yes.
And that's.
Is that about it? I might have dreamed up the third one.
Thank you for paying attention.
Yeah, that's probably not so subtle dig at some of us who might not have made it as well. Okay, and that was the question I had, was really just about that level of permanence. And I just know over the years, I mean, especially maintenance on the canal, like, I mean, they have landscape and all these things that we end up, after the fact, having to look for funding and things like that to find to maintain. So it's good to hear that there is a defined time frame, and then that and you have a plan for that. That's what my main concern was, so thank you.
A motion is required now for the approval of this. I make a motion that we approve the artwork as presented.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. So item number 7, other business. We at some point need to elect officers. Lisa has informed me that there's going to be, in the future, more committee members coming in. Do we want to continue this until we get new committee members, or how do you guys feel about it?
Can I ask, I wanted to ask a question to the staff, because I think I might be a little confused. So the terms, I think Omar and I started at the same time, is that right? So the terms, I think we came in on sort of maybe unexpired terms. So timing-wise, when is the next sort of shuffle of terms for the current board members? Do we know? I think I got confused about it.
What, the updated ordinance that was passed at the end of the summer and went into effect in the fall, it added 2 new members. Mm-hmm. Then prior to that, when Avis was appointed, there's a vacant slot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Omar was appointed into the slot held by Mark Crittenbrink.
Okay.
And then, but Omar's slot wasn't reappointed. So there's a vacancy from kind of the original 5 committee members. And then there's 2 more that were added in the ordinance. And those 3 we've asked to be filled immediately. I don't immediately remember you and Omar's. It seems like I submitted you guys for reappointment earlier last year.
Yeah, and I think...
You have several more terms, at least 2 more terms.
Okay. So maybe it makes sense to continue this. Is there an impact for us of continuing this?
No, just that I had suggested to Omar that you could continue it because at the last meeting there were only 3 committee members here.
Sure.
And that everyone expressed concern about making that decision with not everybody here. And I pointed out to him I believe that the new committee members will be on board in the very near future.
Okay.
So
I would concur that I think it would be nice if there's no issue with waiting. I think it would be a good thing to wait until we have a larger group and spread that leadership out amongst all of us.
I would move to continue other business, item 7A, to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Do we want to continue it to the next meeting?
to the next meeting.
Yes.
When you may or may not have a January meeting.
Right, that's what I'm saying, just to the next committee meeting, yes.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 8A, we have a presentation regarding the falls at 108 East California Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm John Neubauer. I'm the Corporate General Manager for the Falls Event Center. We're based in Salt Lake City. I wanted to take just a couple of minutes and give you some background about our company, and then I'll introduce our architect from Salt Lake City area who's will address the exterior changes that we propose, and then Mr. Johnson will help give some context to what we're doing in a historical view. We view this as an information meeting. We'll come back with a formal application here, but we seek your advice and counsel today. We don't claim to be repositories of all intellectual knowledge. We consider this committee partner, and we value your feedback as we go forward. You need me to sign in, is that correct, ma'am? Okay. We started in 2011. Our founders have experience with other small event centers. These are venues only, so we don't serve alcohol. We don't have catering. We allow the guests, whether they be corporate or family guests, to make all their arrangements separately. It's one of the things that people really like about our facility is that everything is, the choices are theirs, it's their event. We started to look in Oklahoma City for a prospective site a number of months ago. Stumbled across this site, did not intend to be, we were actually looking for newer sites in the suburbs, locations that we could build our core product from scratch, and our real estate consultant happened to be staying in the Bricktown area and saw the sign in the building. It's a perfect setting. We have a historic property that we're in the process of developing in St. Paul, Minnesota. We have a historic property that we have in just off of downtown Salt Lake. So we're familiar with it. We're excited about the opportunity to be here. And so from that perspective, let me sign in and defer the podium to Alan Shurtleff, our architect.
My name's Alan Shurtleff, architect based out of Utah. The building has been vacated for quite some time. The roof is actually completely unusable from a structural standpoint, not just a roofing standpoint. So we are going to have to structurally replace the roof on this building. That brought us to an opportunity to look at a rooftop patio type of element. And in looking at the weather and climate of Oklahoma, it was determined that they wanted to enclose part of that patio in a glass structure of some type, and add those elements to that. So that was the identifying project and what we wanted to accomplish. On the main level will be the entry point of the event center, and we have a variety of different rooms. We have a bridal suite, we have a game room, we have an office, we have a boardroom. All the main bathrooms will be on that level. On the upper level, which we would deem as the second level, would contain the larger meeting rooms that are geared around 100 to 200 occupant load on those rooms. And then we have the rooftop element that we're looking at. We've met with the city. They've given us some feedback, and it's been well received. They would like any new things to look substantially different than historic, and so we've taken that and adjusted our game plan a little bit to accommodate those elements. The renderings that you have on the foam cores, we actually recently were given some historic pictures that showed the window treatments, and we made some adjustments to the windows recently based on those historic pictures that we received that were taken during the construction of the canal. And so those window treatments now adjust those with a horizontal mullion in that window to simulate that. Currently, the building has been boarded up. The windows have been boarded up for quite some time. So that's what we currently have. So we don't have any current windows to work from. We just have pictures to work from. The side windows that face the mini golf course are added windows to large meeting rooms. We actually looked at a lot of the buildings in Bricktown, came up with those window treatments through an interior design studio within our own office of which windows would best fit the look and feel of the building. That east wall that faces the mini golf course, there was quite some discussion about that. To give you a little bit of history, there was a building that was adjacent to this. When that building got torn down, the bearing wall got torn down with it. And there is only a cinder block infill wall that's painted. So our effort would be to try and mimic some original brick look of Bricktown with some brick columns and introduce some artwork in the forms of some murals and things like that on that wall. So that's the direction that we've tried to lead this and take that discussion to let it be a aesthetically pleasing side wall rather than just the current wall that's painted a khaki brown color. So we're just trying to find the solution to a wall. We're in negotiations and have negotiated for a 5-foot easement along there. Our intent would be to put a sidewalk access that would connect us to the back of the building, and that would give us access to parking and pedestrian traffic coming and going. The only other access point is to go down the stairs, back up the stairs. So we're trying to mitigate some of those kinds of things. With the rooftop element, we went back and forth on several different designs there. The design is strongly influenced with a lot of the roof elements in Bricktown, and we have a street view rendering that shows that same green roof throughout Bricktown, and we adopted that in our design. And the structure is designed similar to the entry on the ballpark. And those were the influences that influenced our design.
I have a question. First, for you, Michael, is the artwork, if they should move forward with this artwork, don't they, isn't that an Arts Council first?
Yeah, that's probably a secondary element here. It'll probably
Yes.
follow, once, if they get approval for the rest of
Yes.
the building, then they would probably engage an artist and start that process separately and come back for us.
And in addition, we've been working with Mallory O'Neill, and will be looking to involve local artists through her council in the process, so it's not Alan bringing his own image from Utah to Oklahoma City.
Thank you. I have just a couple of other questions. Have you encountered, or are you aware of other structural issues on this building since I have some experience with roof issues on these old buildings, which typically also bring along its own set of problems with the rest of the integrity of this building?
To answer your question, we did bring our structural engineering teammate to the site, and we have walked the site with them. They have done a preliminary study on this and have looked at all the structural elements on the building.
So is it in pretty good shape, or?
So, it's a what we deem as a non-reinforced brick building, and we're of full understanding of that. We've had a meeting with the city plans examiners and gone through that process to see what they would require on this building. We're very confident that we can work around this. We will have to do some structural steel that goes to the basement to support that roof structure. There's no question about that. So we've already planned on that to feed structure all the way to the basement.
Okay. And one last question. You mentioned the occupancy. Was it 200, did I?
So typically on a Falls Event Center, we're targeting a maximum capacity of about 300 to 350.
Okay.
That's our typical, that's what they're going to market with weddings and corporate events and those kinds of things.
And this building will hold that?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
The reality is that there's a lot of breakout rooms, and so you've got a game room that has a pool table in it, and you're not going to fit 50 people in a room like that. It's intended to be a corporate breakout room where the execs can go do that, or the groom's party is hanging out while the brides are getting ready. Those are the breakout rooms, and we've got a boardroom that has probably a 15 to 20 occupant load. So there's a lot of smaller rooms that support the large rooms. The large rooms, we really want to target around the 100 to 200 for each of those rooms, and that's where they hold most of the banquet type of events.
Okay, thank you.
And did I hear correctly that Johnson Associates is also going to present on the building? So I'll probably reserve my comments till I don't want to ask questions that are going to be answered.
I've got a couple of questions. On the, I may have missed it, on the east side of the building, were you planning on re-bricking that facade?
So you can see that there are some existing concrete columns that go vertically. If you look closely at that paint, our intent would to put some face brick on those locations and then paint the cinder block with some artwork. That would be the intent of what we'd try to accomplish there. And again, our effort is to make that facade look like something in Bricktown.
The rendering that I was looking at almost looked like there was brick on that facade.
And the idea was, we could come back and do some brick elements that could be a painted element or a thin brick that was applicated to the wall, and do those kinds of things. So we put both up there to see, which was most well received. our effort, looking at Bricktown and looking at the canal, having been on the boats in canal, we really want to embrace the artwork of Bricktown, and so that's what we want to do, is just leave it to the community and to the, the other committees, and let them determine what's there. The images that are there are just my team, when we think Oklahoma and Oklahoma City, we do our research, we come up with what you guys already know, and that's a lot of those types of images that we put up there. Those are not intended to be the images, that's just a representation of what we could get.
In our discussions with Chris Johnson, we've indicated, we've agreed with him, he would like to have brick on the side of that building. And we've agreed to do that in exchange for the 5-foot easement that will run along the side of the building.
The 5-foot easement is going to be on the east side of the building?
Correct.
That's a very visible area, so thank you.
The only other comment I would make is, because that main facade on the east side is so visible, punching more windows in there or adding more articulation to the facade would be very, very pleasing.
Yeah, and we've looked at opportunities to add windows. Where there is opportunity, we will put windows. The center of the building is the elevator shaft and the existing stair shaft, and so there's no opportunity to put windows in in that side because of the stairs and the elevator. So the literally half of that facade is the stairs and elevator, so there really isn't anything we can do with those.
I will just comment that I agree, certainly that building has been there for years and years. As long as I've been in Bricktown, it has been vacant and quite frankly an eyesore. And prior to that, it was kind of I don't know that pop-ups were a thing back then, but it seems like there was a lot of come and goes, and there were always bars, easy come, easy go, and so it would be really nice to have something of substance in that location.
Any other comments? Tim?
Good morning. Mark Zitzel is passing out some of the historic pictures that we've had from during the construction of the canal. I'm Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates and appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this team. This is one of the most exciting things we've seen on the canal for years. Having office next to this building for 10 years on the canal and dealt with the fact that the back was always busted open, it was always being broken into, there was water leaking out onto the street, out of the doors. It was just always a problematic building, and so we're really, really grateful that these guys have taken this on. The role that I'll play is helping them work through some of the adaptability of the building access to the canal and to the upper level walkway. Some of you may not be aware that when we designed the canal, we also worked with, it took us over a year to get with all the property owners on the canal to come up with a agreeable solution to access easements, shared walking ways and stuff that was required. That became a 30 to 40 page document of each property owner signing before they released the vacated property that California became their property. So as a part of that, the Dorn structure, at the time we were negotiating this, Mr. Dorn had passed away and we were dealing with his daughter. And she was not a real estate person, really didn't seek counsel from legal, nor would they agree to sign a waiver on the structural aspect of their building, which we required of everybody else. So what we ended up in front of their building is, as you've seen down there, it's got ivy covering it now, but there's a big old retaining wall that covered their lower level access. That was a garage door that was dock high. So it got passed over in all the design of the canal. So it's unfortunate, but now's an opportunity that we can work with these guys to bring in accessibility to the canal level, open that space up, and allow them to share access, cross-access for walking, cross-access for, to allow, as on some of the images they provided, the ability to have tables and chairs out onto the canal level, as do many of the other restaurants and users along the canal. We'll be working with the Parks Department on gaining the ability to implement the falls water feature that they want to add, which will be a great asset to this area. As with the mini golf being as successful as it is, the water just seems to attract more people. And we have a big open space just east of this that hopefully we can work with Chris, and he's wanting to enhance that area too. Right now it's just kind of beat up Bermuda grass. So we'll be working with them to get that done. Some of the pictures that you've got, these are images that we took during the construction of the canal. So we took a lot of care and understanding what the foundation of the building was before we decided to button this thing up with this wall, because we couldn't get their permission to do anything else inside or close to the building. So this was our safety fuse for the city. We built this to protect the building. But the intent was always to open this back up. So that'll be something that they'll look at. They may choose to leave it alone. We'll take access through the doorway. This old doorway here that had ornate steps in front of it, they want to bring that back and then create that patio area there. How many of you remember when the building was blue? So, so khaki is quite an advance. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have of what we need to do down there.
Tim, if I haven't visited with Chris about his miniature golf facility, it was placed there kind of as a temporary thought at the time, and it has been a real attraction. So I guess my question is, if that miniature golf course should change to something else, does it affect anything that you all are planning?
That's a good question. I think the initial answer is it doesn't affect this building, but knowing what potentially could happen on the golf course, and you're right, the golf course was intended to be a placeholder, a temporary use of the land. The good news is it's been very successful.
Absolutely.
But the goal for that tract of land is higher and better.
Yes.
The 5-foot easement that they're attempting to gain from Chris is something that we've supported since Jim Brewer owned that tract. Yeah. And because I think that's a critical access point to parking and the other uses along the alley. And so we're highly supportive of that, and we'll work with them and Chris to get that done. That will allow then some separation between the structures. So from a building code standpoint, they're going to have to deal with that on the building that goes up. If they have windows there, fire code's going to require certain things to happen on the new building, unless they set it back an additional 5+ feet. So it doesn't affect this building, like I said. Okay. It would affect a little bit the design of something in the future. The other thing we did when we designed the canal here is we always intended that this tract would be utilized for, again, a higher and better use. So the sheet piling that's there now was intended to be cut away and allow access and openness to the canal. And that's why it's there. And so it could easily be cut away and allow access to the lower level from any future building. So anything that they do would not hinder that.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a couple of questions. So I think something that I wasn't real clear on. So the building does have a basement level, right?
It does.
Okay, and so it sounds like there's still some, maybe we hadn't settled on the design for how that would go in, because had the water feature, but then I think there was a rendering that talked about Even Stevens, the sandwich shop. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to clarify sort of how that was going to come together.
Michael, did we get that canal view to you last week? Yeah, so, yeah, please. So we did an additional, when we met with the city before, they asked us to do an additional design, and my apologies, I thought I had conveyed that to Michael, at least I had got it to Tim. But it shows the canal view of the entry point. The Even Stevens restaurant is one of our sister companies, but after the newspaper article a week or two ago, Even Stevens concluded their research and found that Oklahoma City is a great location for Even Stevens, but Bricktown is not quite the right location for them yet. They're more millennial locations, young people living close by, and maybe 5 years from now, Bricktown will be a great location, but it's not at the moment. So we'll be looking to reach out here in the next few weeks and seek a restaurant partner so that they will have both canal access as well as the street access that we intend there. If I was a restaurant, I'd want the access from both locations, not just both levels, not just one or the other. Mr. Thompson, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So, and I'm just kind of comparing it to what's up on the screen now. So where that water feature is, and I want to make sure I have this right because I don't know if I have the other side of the building, sort of that we don't have really good views of what would be the back side of the building, I guess as it stands right now. Because that goes into there's an alley there, right? Okay, so where the water feature is, then immediately to the west of that, that would be this. That's kind of where that would come into play.
Correct.
And so I think what was confusing me is when I saw this rendering here, it seemed like the water feature wasn't necessarily there. So I want to make sure I understood that correctly. So I think that makes sense. That kind of answers that question. The other question I had is maybe more of a design question. I wasn't sure if Tim was going to sort of address it or not, but I do think I have a little bit of concern about the elevator shaft. Looks like it's being demoed at the roof level, and the elevator shaft looks to be. So if you see here, this is where these kind of buildings typically the shaft terminates at the top for the elevator. So it looks like that's going away when they add that.
The way that elevators are currently, you have to have a set dimension above the top of the elevator shaft for maintenance purposes, and that elevator shaft is not designed that way to go to the rooftop level, and we would have to take the elevator to the rooftop level. So we're going to have to add to that elevator. You know, it's been determined by our team that the best way to do that is to have the elevator and the stairs come up into the glass enclosure as part of that enclosure, so that it's enclosed and part of that.
Oh. Okay, so I mean, I understand these are preliminary designs too. So just to give the feedback, I think what you're saying is
we're having to add it. Just so you understand, we're having to add another set of stairs because we have to have two means of egress. This building does not meet code in any way, shape, or form right now for any kind of occupant load. So you have to have a second set of stairs. So opposite of the east over to the west on the existing building side, we're going to have to add another set of stairs that goes down.
So in your subsequent design, is the intent still, though, to keep the location of the elevator?
It is.
So in the subsequent design, we probably see some evidence of that.
Yeah, you'll see an elevator structure.
Right.
But the idea is that you won't see a stair structure because the stairs will literally be open to that room. So you'll come up into that atrium room, not in a stair shaft, so to speak, but in an open setting of stairs.
Yeah, and so as a point of feedback for the information purposes of this, I think, and again, just when I look at it, I think we've had a lot of conversations about how to sort of juxtapose like modern interpretations of these historic buildings because we want them to have these higher and greater uses. This is definitely one of them, so I applaud the efforts, definitely. But then I always tend to look at, you know, where demolition takes place. Where are the things that we're going to subtract that we won't ever add again? And so when you are looking at that design, I think any attention you can pay to trying to preserve some element of that feature. And again, it seems like a kind of a small thing, but if you go and you look at the character of a lot of these other buildings, that it is a consistent feature with these shafts. And I do get that the codes and regulations and the use cases change for them. So I understand that, but just kind of taking that into some consideration.
And to answer your question, when we didn't consider enclosing this rooftop element, we were going to keep that and try to preserve the sign that is actually on top of that elevator shaft. So there was an effort in the initial part of this to preserve everything. When we looked at enclosing the roof, that became something that just wasn't feasible.
Yeah. So I would, the better case you guys can make for why you had to do what you would do is helpful, because I think we've been pretty excited with the Plow Building and some other efforts to really sort of incorporate those elements into the redevelopment of those buildings. And I think it really helps to bring that history into a modern context. So anything you can do around that would be appreciated.
Thank you. And we do have a question for you. So when we were here before, our original design that we brought to the city and to private business leaders that we solicited counsel from had a more historic look to the entry point, and we were counseled, why don't you try to do a more modern look to that entry point there? And so we just wanted to know if you're comfortable with that look. We were counseled to go over and take a look at the Holiday Inn Express there, and we did that, and that actually, Alan was excited about that, because if you've been to our website and you see our typical design of our brand new buildings, it incorporates that kind of a feature. But we just want to make sure that before we start to work on the formal plans that you're comfortable with that entryway.
I think from my perspective, again, I think over the past few years, because we've had some pretty significant redevelopment of buildings, and then we've had some new construction, it's kind of a good compromise, in my opinion, again. But I think we would tend to look at the materials and the style of how that's actually going to be put together. It didn't raise any super flags for me. But one of the things that I did notice and I've kind of wondered about, but I'd probably ask staff, or perhaps when we kind of get this design a little bit more refined, what Tim was saying about the canal level was really instructive. But it does seem like the building makes that walkway, or the changes to the building, the proposed changes, make that walkway a little busy, and I don't want to use the word cluttered because I don't want to have negative connotation. Just feel like we're bringing a lot towards that street. That's probably fine. It's probably, from a space standpoint, still allows for pretty good flow of traffic and things like that in there. But that was something that I noticed. But the feature itself, I think, can work if, based on your overall proposal. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
I also have no problem with that entrance, the looks of that. I was curious, what is the overall height of this as shown?
The overall height?
The overall height, I apologize, I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to look at that. It's shorter than the adjacent building, and so we didn't look at the height, but I can certainly find that information out and pass it on to the city.
I was just thinking, I'm certainly no architect, but it seems to me that addition, if everybody should end up agreeing to it, will appear taller than it really is.
Right. So to answer your question more appropriately, the glass walls are 12 foot tall.
Okay. That helps.
So to help you, the overall height, I don't know how tall the roof is, but the overall height of that glass wall, we didn't exceed 12 feet. We felt like it was inappropriate to go higher.
Yeah, because I do think it'll appear maybe even grander and taller than it is.
And that was what we wanted to indicate with the nighttime rendering. We don't do a lot of nighttime renderings, but we felt that was very important to do a nighttime rendering to show what the building looked like at nighttime, because we see this as a very visible element.
Thank you.
I just have one last comment. I like the idea of having whatever new you're doing to a building differentiate itself from the existing style of the building, especially historical size. But Tim mentioned that there was a there was an existing entry to the old facade that had stair steps going up to that, to the ground level or above the ground level. The location of that entry element seems like, just judging from what's there and what was historically on the existing facade, it almost seems like you're not utilizing that existing entry at all. It's actually being taken over on those windows that are on the east side of that entry. Is there any consideration at all on reusing that existing entry that was there before?
So if you look at, do you have a historical picture?
Yeah, this is the Graham Company.
So there are actually, the new level is right here at this point, and you can see that they had stairs that went up to that. That archway entry is not large enough for the capacity of the building, and so the new capacity of the building would require us to have double doors. And we looked at it and just said, let's take the arched entry and put a double door in that element and put a new element on it. So that was where that design came from.
But is that location of that, is the location of the new entry in the same area that the old entry was?
It's to the east side, but it still covers the existing archway. So it starts at the archway and moves towards the east.
Okay.
The garage door entry was considered to be an entry point. That soon became a reality that we couldn't create a sense of entry with that element.
It just, in this rendering, it almost looks like it's not even, the blue sign that you have there is actually where that archway is, and then everything else on the left side is taken over by the new entry. I mean, I don't know what the plan is and how it works out floor plan wise, but to me, I would have preferred to have that entry slide over and maybe even centered on that archway and keep the windows.
Floor plan wise, we have the main office entry on the west side of that. So as you come in, we have the general manager's office right there at the entry point. So it's immediately the first room is the general manager's office.
So just to clarify, this new entrance extends to the east of the existing entrance and encompasses the existing entrance as well. And
The existing entrance right now is infilled with brick, so there's no entrance point there. That entrance point was taken away.
it's already gone.
And so it's already gone. So right now, that's infilled with brick. The building has been painted, so it doesn't even have the original brick color on it right now. It's been painted. And so that burgundy color is a paint. It's not the actual brick color.
Okay.
And so we'll have to, our intent is to go in and take that color off. But if you look closely at the pictures, that arched entry, it's completely infilled with brick at this point.
You can see in the photograph the different brick where the archway is. So just to put
I see that.
just to clarify everything, from this picture, everything on the right side, my right side of the archway is basically, those windows are gone. That's where the new entry is.
That's where we determined the best place to put the entry that looked the best on our design.
Okay.
If we're going to put an entry on the building, this looks like the best place to put it.
Okay.
So that's where that was generated from.
Any comments?
I always appreciate these opportunities to just visit. It hasn't always been so, and so I think it's a good opportunity, certainly for the applicant, but also for us to have some purview on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 8B, 2017 meeting schedule.
Yeah, that's just a copy for your binders.
Item 8C, administrative approval report.
We just had one administrative approval in the last month. It was for the Bricktown Police Department substation. They're basically reconfiguring portions of their parking lot, and that required them to reconfigure a lot of the fencing on the site and do some curb and gutter work in various places.
Are there any comments from staff?
Yes, we put, I think most of you have picked it up, we put copies of the handout from Friday's training workshop. Please take time to review it.
We do have an approval from the Board of Adjustments on case number BCA 16-00018.
Yes, this was the one-story parking attendant building on the west side of Oklahoma Avenue that the committee approved a couple months back and recommended approval of the variance on. And the variance, as you know, is for the minimum height of a two-story building, and that was only a one-story building. So they did obtain approval of that variance for the one-story building.
I do have one question. When we looked at that building, we had asked them to look at the facade a little bit more detail.
Yeah, we're still in the process of doing that with them. So they do have an application filed that is supposed to address that, plus some additional signage that would be administratively approvable anyway. So we're kind of bundling that together, and once they have something to share with us with respect to the brick pattern that they want to use on that east elevation, we'll be able to go ahead and approve that.
Okay. Item 8F, any comments from committee members? Nope. The next meeting date is set for January 11th, 2017. Do we have items to discuss that day, or?
I don't think you do.
Because this applicant, they didn't submit.
Yeah,
for
this
January.
applicant was talking to us about filing to be on the January agenda, but the deadline for that was yesterday, and we didn't receive an application, so we may not be meeting in January right now.
Okay. And we are finished. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, guys.